Hello everyone, I hope you all are safe and doing well. My name is Sandeep and today's video is going to be the first video on our Agile series which is focused on Agile and the methodologies which follow Agile. So without taking any further time, let's jump right into the video. Now before we start with Agile, let's set the stage and understand the need behind evolution of these concepts and how we moved from the agricultural revolution to the industrial and from there to the current stage of information revolution. Now during the Neolithic period, hunter-gatherers roam around the world foraging for the food, but then a dramatic shift occurred. The foragers became farmers and they started to settle down at one place, eventually forming the villages. Now then came the next big shift with the development of machines and factories, and people started to move closer and stay closer to these factories and plants, and eventually they started forming of big cities. The evolution of project management concepts started to come in picture with this industrial revolution, and this was to ease out the work and to have a better control on the development. A lot of project management tools and concepts started evolving. This also led to more advanced tools and concepts, the likes of Gantt charts, work breakdown structures, etc. Now recently after the industrial revolution, we saw the rise of industry which is more focused on information and collectively work without any actual manufacturing. The products coming out of this information revolution are defined in terms of value they deliver. So the focus has moved from delivering goods to delivering value. Now let's have a close look on the characteristics of the industrial work that was done during industrial revolution, and a lot of work is also still continued, and the knowledge work, which is majority of the work that is being done in the information revolution. So industrial work is always visible. So the end product or the output of any industrial work or industrial project will give you a physical output. So that is basic characteristics of an industrial work. It could be a building, it could be a car, it could be a national highway, it could be a flyover, or it could be a dam. So it could be anything that is physically visible to us. It is stable, and by stable we mean that the output or the product will be known to us. So even before we start working on the project, the output is known to us. We can expect the outcome and we know what would be the end product. Also, it focuses on running things. So it has a very linear approach, step by step. This needs to be done first, this needs to be done second, third, and so on. So it focuses on completing work in a very linear fashion. And industrial work is always very well structured. There is very less scope of taking any decisions, so it has more structure and very less decision points. Now, in order to give an accurate structure or a fixed structure to the entire workflow of any work, we need to know the accurate answers. So we expect accurate answers from the requirements, from the client, from the customer. So we need to understand what exactly is needed, and accordingly we can define the task. So industrial work has defined tasks. Now, in order to keep a control on whether we are delivering to the expectations or not, so we have to have a better command and control. It also has well-defined standards. And based on these standards, a regular performance measurement is being conducted throughout the project lifecycle. Also, at the end, controlling or minimizing the cost of workers for each task is also a part of industrial work. Now coming to knowledge work, and contrary to industrial work, knowledge work is always something that is invisible. It could be a software, it could be a web service, it could be a machine learning algorithm, it could be anything that we cannot physically see. And it also includes or incorporates or expects a lot of changes. So when we start, we might not be aware of what would be the end product, how it would look like, what would be the features. So as and when we progress, we accept changes and we keep on building on those changes. And that is because of the changing environment around the knowledge works. A lot of variables are considered, a lot of factors are considered, and the customer might come up with new feature request, new enhancements request, or maybe entirely new aspect of the work that he is expecting. Now, since everything is changing, we cannot structure it. So there is very less structure and there are more decisions. And in order to take appropriate decisions, we must ask relevant questions. So without asking questions, we cannot take better decisions. And now we have all the information building up, we have decisions that we can take, and then based on that we evaluate the tasks. And now task evaluation is a regular process. We prioritize, we deprioritize, we descope. and accordingly, in a way, we are autonomous. Now, with that, autonomous leads to a lot of innovation, and innovation is always followed by learning and teaching. Now, contrary to industrial work, workers here are treated as assets and not as a cost. Now let's have a quick sneak peek into the history of Agile and when it really started picking up. Now Agile was born in 2001 when 17 software developers coming from various development methodologies background met and brainstormed for 2 days to find an alternative software development model. Now the expectations was to find out a development model or to define a development model which is less rigid and less documentation heavy when compared to the existing traditional software development models. Now the end result of this meeting was a formal document which was called Agile Manifesto, and this Agile Manifesto defined the 4 core values and the underlying 12 principles for the software development. So Agile is not a set of rules or guidelines, it's a mindset. Now the dictionary meaning of the word Agile is able to move quickly and easily. So in line with this meaning, we can easily say that Agile in software development could be defined as the ability to develop software easily, quickly, and with quality. Agile is a software development approach where requirements and solutions evolve as a collaborative effort of self-sufficient and cross-functional teams and their customers or end users. It advocates adaptive planning, evolutionary development, continuous deliveries through iterations, continual improvement, and rapid and flexible response to the changes. Now, being agile is not just a matter of using a certain set of tools or practices. It really involves adopting a new mindset, which is based on agile values and principles. So, in February 2005, the Agile Project Leadership Network published a statement called the Declaration of Interdependence, which included 6 principles, which was directly intended for project managers of software development projects. Out of those, the first principle is return on investment. So, we increase return on investment by making continuous flow of value our focus. So the focus is on increasing ROI. Next one is we deliver reliable results by engaging customers in frequent interaction and shared ownership. We build something, we ask the client to test, and we validate and we move forward. So ownership is defined and shared between the development team and the end users. We expect uncertainty and manage for it through iterations, anticipations, and adaptations. Next one is we unleash creativity and innovation by recognizing that individuals are the ultimate source of value and creating an environment where they can make a difference that really boosts the performance. It is boosted through group accountability for results and shared responsibility for team effectiveness. And further, we improve effectiveness and reliability through situationally specific strategies, processes, and practices. So in brief, the core principles of Agile are welcoming change, working on small value-added increments, using deliver and feedback cycles, learning through discovery, value-driven development, continuous delivery, and continuous improvements. Now let's also have a look at the traditional and agile model. So success in project management has been traditionally associated with the ability of the constraint parameters of project in scope, time, cost, and quality. Primarily, the triple constraints. It is a popular metaphor pointing out that a manager is asked to reach a reasonable trade-off among these 3 constraints. The agile or the inverted triangle of constraint was first introduced in DSDM manual published in 1994. With this, it is aimed to deliver maximum value by a fixed date and within a fixed budget. Now, this also calls for a criticism as it cannot be the best way to deliver construction projects. Those needs to be completed to the defined requirement and might be useless if partially delivered. In those cases, the traditional or waterfall approach would make a lot more sense. But the knowledge work benefits a lot from agile approach as the end product can be first delivered and then improved by each iteration or sprint as we call it. Now, let's have a look at the Agile Manifesto. So the Agile Manifesto has 4 fundamental values and 12 supporting principles which leads to an agile approach. Now the first value in the Agile Manifesto is individual and interactions over processes and tools. So valuing people more than process or tools is easy to understand because it is the people who respond to business needs and drive the development process. If the process or the tools drive development, the team is less responsive to any change and is very less likely to meet the customer needs. Communication is perfect example for the difference between valuing individual versus processes. In the case of individual, communication happens on the fly and as and when it is needed. But in case of a process, communication is scheduled and requires specific format and or content. Next is working software over comprehensive documentation. So in the past, a lot of efforts and time was spent on documenting the product for development and the final delivery. Now technical specifications, technical requirements, UI design documents, test plans, documentation plans, and a lot of time was wasted for getting these documents approved. This caused a long delay in development. Agile does not eliminate documentation, but it streamlines it in a form that gives the developer what is needed to do the work without getting bogged down into the unwanted details. Now, Agile documents requirements as user stories, which are sufficient for a software developer to start developing a new function. The Agile Manifesto does value documentation, but it values working software a bit more. Next one is customer collaboration over contract negotiations. Now, negotiation is the period when the customer and the product manager work out the details of a delivery, with the points along the way where the details may be renegotiated. Now, collaboration is different creature entirely. With development models such as waterfall, customers negotiate the requirements for the product, often in a great amount of detail, and that happens before starting any work. This means the customer was either involved before the development or after the development is done, but the customer is not involved during the process of development. The Agile Manifesto describes a customer who is engaged and collaborates throughout the development process. This makes it far easier for development to meet their needs and to deliver in line with the expectations of the customer. Agile method may include the customer at intervals for specific periods. One of the end users might be part of the daily stand-ups for the daily meetings, and that is to ensure that the product meets the business needs of the customer. Now the next one is responding to change over following a plan. Now traditional software development regarded change as an expense, so it was to be avoided. The intention was to develop a detailed, elaborate plans with a defined set of features and with everything generally having as high a priority as everything else, and with a large number of many dependencies on delivering a certain order so that the team can work on the next piece of the puzzle. With Agile, the shortness of an iteration means priorities can be shifted from iterations to iterations and new features can be added into the next iteration. Now, Agile's view is that change always improves the product or output of the project, and changes provide additional value. Now let's briefly go through the 12 Agile principles. And to begin with, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable softwares. Welcoming change requirements, even late in development, Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. Deliver working software frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, with a preference to the shorter time scale, and that sets the right pace of the development and also helps us in prioritizing important features and bringing them earlier in the plan. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project to avoid any gap, to avoid any delays, and to utilize maximum time. Build projects around motivated individuals and give them the environment and the support they need, and trust them to get the job done. Motivated individuals will deliver a lot more value. Now, the most effective and efficient method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. Now, working software is the primary measure of progress. Nothing else can define if the software is working and the features are getting added, and we can see that okay, the product is having more and more features by every release. That is a measure of progress. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. The best architectures, requirements, and design emerges from self-organizing teams. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. Now that's all for today's video. If you have a question, drop a comment, and if you have any feedback to share, you can drop a mail on pmintellects@gmail.com. Thank you and have a nice day.